Series copyright 2009. WC replays. Go ahead and get your replay queued up at the 2-minute mark. 1x speed, soccer's perspective, fog of war off. If you're an orc player and you want to watch future's perspective, that's fine with me, but you've only got 2 choices anyways, so. 2-minute mark, 1x speed, fog of war off, preferably soccer's perspective. I caught this replay on the very front page today. I think it's even been panda'd by now since I downloaded it. And one of the big things that we're going to be talking about and looking at in this game is thinking outside the box. And the reason why I think this is such a good topic in terms of this game, and also right now in the world of Warcraft 3 gaming, is because elf players are starting to do more and more minor to medium-sized adaptations to their games to affect how things go. As a simple demonstration of this would be, there was a game not too long ago, Thu on Melting Valley, where he goes Tinker first as Elf, and I think someone told me he's continued doing this strategy. And I've actually started using this in some of my own games. I'm undefeated using Tinker against Human on Melting Valley. It's a very effective strategy, the way that it can cause the game to play out. There was another game recently where Soccer went Warden and then did a Dryads, Protectors, and Glaive Launchers push on a human base on Echo Isles. And I've done the same strategy. It's quite effective. And I almost did an audio commentary on that, except there's a bit too much to try and go over in that game to really get all the topics across. So last thing before we unpause this game, if you look down at Soccer's base, you're going to see he's doing a Hunts build. His base is set up so his wisps are going to be protected. And a few things I want you to know going into the very start of this, and also in terms of the Hunts build and the tradition of Twisted Meadows, Elf versus Orc, is that the Elf player doesn't have to AOW creep. Especially if you're going to do this Hunt strategy, you're probably not going to do the AOW creep. Some Elf players do a full base block off. I actually like this Wells block off design a little bit better. Another thing is that this Ancient War is being put near a mercenary shop. It's not going to be used to creep there right away. If you decide to put an Ancient War near a mercenary camp, I really suggest away from creeping that first on Twisted Meadows. There's a lot of risk involved in that because Orc players will sometimes harass you so quickly that you run the risk of throwing the game very early on. And the other thing is that what Elf players who do Hunts like to do is they like to go harass the Orc's base right away. And one of the best cancels you can get is on his Voodoo Lounge, especially if he creeps that the Knoll camp that's close to his base, his natural Knoll camp. And so, just to look over at Future's base quickly, to avoid these basic problems at his Knoll camp, he's already got his shop going, but it's all the way up in his base, so it's further for the Elf to have to go, and a lower chance the Elf will actually be able to make this cancel. And also, he's not going to go creep these Knolls immediately. He's going to go to a different set of Knolls so that it's less likely the Elf player jumps him. And I think as Orc players, it's important to make small adaptations like that in terms of thinking what your opponent's going to do. This is interplay. You're thinking about what they're doing, and you respond and react to it. But we're going to see a lot more of this as this game goes on. So let's go ahead and pause the replay on Soccer's perspective, 2-minute mark, 1x speed, fog of war off, unpause in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Now, as we wait for this Demon Hunter to pop out and run over to the Orc space to harass, the last thing I want to talk to you about is that one of the major traditions of this map for Elf players is a strategy where either you're going to try and get to Tier 3 quickly and use bears, and bears are effective against Orcs for many obvious and fairly reasonable reasons, right? Like bears are balanced in the first place, you put them up against, say, raiders, well, bears are kind of going to win against raiders, right? The other thing that some elves will do is they'll do this mass expansion strategy where they'll throw down an expansion and then they'll start to mass dryads at Tier 2. If they have to keep expanding, they keep expanding. But what the elf is going to try to do in that case is the elf player wants to break 50 food faster than the orc is ready to. Because once the orc breaks 50 food, there's a small delay in between the finishing of 2 units and him being able to start 2 new ones. Whereas for the elf player who's broken upkeep, not only can he keep producing back-to-back, he can get upgrades, he can go to Tier 3, he can go buy items. There's a lot of choices that the elf player gets. And we're going to see this play out in this game in a slightly more adaptive than usual way. Now, if we look up at the orc space, even though he wasn't able to kill the shop, we now see that that Soccer is trying to focus down a few workers, and he doesn't get any of them because it's just smart, like reasonably easy play by Future, right? Like, I don't want to lose a worker, so it's going to go in the burrow. It's just don't be a dumbass type of play. Also going on right now is Future has gone to a different Knoll camp to creep, so that it's less likely that he runs into the Demon Hunter. This is smart. I have gotten players who don't play their Blade Master that well, in a situation where they lose their Blade Master at level 1 in this map. And I mean, a level 1 death isn't all that big of a deal, especially compared to like level 2 or level 3, but it's significant. It slows down his creeping, it reduces how many items he can get, and it's useful. And one thing I want you to notice is down at the very, very bottom of the map, this Tree of Life is already going up for Soccer. So Soccer is basically teching and he's expoing at once. The reason in part that he can get away with this is because he's training hunts. The other reason that he can do this is because of how much of a harass that he's putting on the orc player. And this is good micro techniques here by Soccer up at the harass in the orc space. If you watch him when he starts to attack some of these workers, he'll block them with his demon hunter. He'll attack, block over and over again to try and get some of these kills. And just to spoil it for you, I believe he gets 2 worker kills while this goes on. But to go back to this expo, jump over and look at Soccer's base. He's only got a well to put him up to 40 food, and it's only building now. So what's happening is he's not spent approximately 180 gold on a well, and instead put that gold towards 360 gold, 350 for a Tree of Life. The reason why he has the wood to do this expo at this time is because in this strategy, typically an elf player will end up with a few extra wisps because your tech timing early on is more based on wood than it is on gold. So he spends the extra gold getting extra wisps, and this is what allows him to do this strategy overall. Up at the orc base, he also had to cancel his burrow a few times, and that's just more wood loss for the orc. The orc is units not getting wood. He's got them, he's got them in the burrow. He's got them repairing burrows, and he's got them dying. So the elf is in a reasonably nice situation from this harass. And so what's happening, though, is both these players are trying to figure out the strategies that they're going to be using against each other. And the orc player is now thinking that it's highly likely, since the elf player went hunts, that the elf player is not going to be doing a hunts to dot strategy, but is going to be doing, a hunts to dryads and bears, or something similar, which